Hey, today we are looking at the Last Supper. Jesus in an upper room with the disciples, just having a simple meal, like they would have done many, many times before. On their adventure across Israel and Judah, where they were in Capernaum and Galilee, on amazing adventures, seeing God do incredible things, the sick healed, the Pharisees rebuked, the power of the kingdom of God coming. And you can imagine what it must have been like, sat around the table at the end of the day. All of the disciples laughing and joking, the camaraderie. They must have been talking about, wow, did you see that blind guy? Eyes actually grew back in his socket. They would have been excited about the hundreds and thousands that came out to hear Jesus talking. Can you imagine the meal after Peter walked on the water? And you know, in many of these occasions, Jesus used this time of just sitting down, hanging out with the disciples to teach them about the kingdom of God. And here we are at the Last Supper, and Jesus does that very thing. In John's Gospel, we see Jesus pick up a towel and put it around his waist. He kneels down and he washes the disciples' feet. And the Synoptic Gospels focus on the bread and the wine. As Jesus takes the bread and he breaks it, he tells them that his body will be broken. He takes the wine, the cup, and he says, this wine is my blood and it's going to be shed for you. And he tells them to do this often and to remember the death and the resurrection. In church, we often call this the Eucharist. We call this the communion. And we think often that it's something that we do when we come together on a Sunday, maybe once a week or once a month. But Jesus is saying to them, listen, you sit and eat. It's the most common thing you do all throughout the day. Breakfast and lunch and dinner you eat. And what he is saying is not once a week, but every time you sit down, every time you're together, remember that I died for you and I rose again. And that's the power of the Easter message, that there is the death. They were about to go from a time of a few years of great joy and excitement to a time of trauma, where Jesus' body would be battered and brutally executed. He says, you will all fall away on account of me. He talks of great trauma and of great trials, but he says this, when I am resurrected, I will go ahead of you. Sometimes in life we have great seasons and great times, but how often great times can suddenly go into terrible times, can suddenly go into trauma, can go into difficulty or financial ruin or broken relationships, from great highs to great lows. But as we sit and we eat, as we remember Jesus, we remember this, that whatever we face, wherever we are, whatever we go through, Jesus has gone before you. He says, I have gone before you. Go to Galilee. And you know, as they received that word, as they believed in faith that Jesus had gone before them, after the resurrection, they saw the resurrected Christ. And I want to tell you today that on the other side of your trouble, on the other side of your struggle, on the other side of whatever you're going through, Jesus is there because he has already gone before you. He died and he rose again. So as we sit and as we break bread together, let's remember the death, the resurrection, and the fact that God has gone before us.